evening and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining this evening's event, The Death of Facebook, featuring Teddy Solomon, the CEO and founder of Fizz. This conversation is a part of Vanderbilt University's 250 Conversations on America, a year-long series celebrating our nation's 250th anniversary and Vanderbilt's enduring commitment to open dialogue. My name is Aiden Liebert, and I'm a junior at Vanderbilt University, majoring in political science and minoring in business. I've been a part of the Student Advisory Board of Dialogue Vanderbilt for the past 3 years, and it has been incredibly meaningful to be a part of bringing conversations like this one to campus. Tonight's conversation, led by Vanderbilt students Katie Tully and Charlie Siegel, will explore the future of social media and how digital forums are shaping campus culture, civic dialogue, and the way students engage with one another. Teddy Solomon is the co-founder and CEO of Fizz, America's biggest college social app. Designated as an alternative to legacy social media platforms, Fizz centers on shared experiences and identities within hyperlocal communities. Teddy's mission to bring social back to social media began as a freshman at Stanford, where he and his co-founder built Fizz for their friends. After the app took off at Stanford in 2021, Teddy dropped out to work on Fizz full-time, initially raising a small seed round for expansion. Since dropping out, Teddy has raised over $40 million from NEA, Lightspeed, Owl Ventures, and others. And Fizz has become the dominant social platform on nearly 1,000 campuses across America. Teddy has personally stepped foot on nearly 300 of these campuses, staying true to the original mission of building a product for Gen Z by Gen Z, solving real Gen Z problems. Since launch, Fizz users have made 35 million posts, and in 2025, Fizz passed Reddit on the App Store charts, solidifying its position as Gen Z's go-to community platform. Please join me in welcoming Teddy Solomon.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation. I'm going to kind of just kick us off with an easy question. I know we kind of talked about how you like sharing the story of how you founded Fizz, so if you just wanted to jump right into that.
Sure, yeah, happy to. Thanks for having me here. It's good to see everybody. Rough weather day in Nashville, but here we are. So the story goes back to like 2020. So I grew up wanting to be a college basketball journalist. That was my life goal. I was not trying to build a social media platform. Since I was 3, I wanted to be a college basketball journalist. And when I was a senior in high school, the pandemic hit. Terrible time for the pandemic, always a terrible time for a pandemic to hit. And I was told by Stanford, which was the school that I was going to be going to, that you can't come to campus. I wanted to go get some semblance of the college experience, so I hopped onto a Zoom call with like 100 people. They were all trying to live in the Bay Area, close to Stanford's campus. I was like, you guys are crazy for wanting to live in the Bay Area. It's super expensive. I couldn't afford to go live on my own in the Bay Area. We should go to Scottsdale, Arizona, where it's 115 degrees and super cheap. I convinced 25 of them to do that, so 25 Stanford freshmen, we all moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. And that is where Fizz came to be, which is we arrived as freshmen, had no idea what was going on at the actual school that we went to. We were on Instagram, which still on Instagram, highlight reel, entertainment platform. You just kind of like doom scroll, and even Instagram says it's like 7% of content is your friends, 93% is not. We were in this 1,200 person group chat where nobody would speak. It would be like 3 people canceling each other, and otherwise nobody would have anything to say with respect to campus life. We didn't know how to meet friends. We didn't know how to buy and sell. We didn't know how to just know what was going on at our school. So we built Fizz just as a side project, as something for our friends. Eventually launched it on Stanford's campus after our freshman year. By dinner time, all of Stanford was on. And then a weird sequence of events that I'm happy to talk about later, like meeting this girl at a frat party who introduced me to her dad, who convinced me to drop out, and then I just started going to campuses, and here we are. So it's been a cool journey.
Awesome.
Can you talk about that?
I'm happy to. So we launched on Stanford's campus, still trying to be a college basketball journalist. That was my goal. And after it blew up at Stanford, every VC in America the next day reached out to us. I didn't know what a VC was. I'm like, why are you saying you're going to put $1 million into my company? There was no company. I didn't know what they were talking about. So we took no money. We're like, these guys are all trying to screw us over. We're taking no money. We're going back to school. So we went back for a fall of our sophomore year. And then one night in October of 2021, near the start of my sophomore year, I went to a frat party. I met this girl who texted me at 3 a.m. and she's like, you need to meet my dad. He's a serial entrepreneur. He exited like 7 companies. He does this. This is what he does. He's super curious about, what your company's all about. He believes in your mission. I was like, well, there's still no company. Like, we're just students at Stanford. We built this app that everybody's using, but like, that's all. I'm trying to do college basketball stuff. I went to meet him, and somehow he convinced me to drop out of Stanford the next day. He put the first $750K into the company. He is still my #1 mentor to this day. I talk to him pretty much every day. He exited his first company in '98 to Amazon for like $300 million. He went and did it over and over and over again. He just knows how to be an entrepreneur. And that was why I dropped out. I dropped out with my co-founder, the guy who I met in that Zoom breakout room, who I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona with, Ashton. I still live with him to this day. It's been 5 years, and we're still living together. And me and Ashton have been on this journey together. Rakesh has been a great mentor of ours. And, at this point in time, we're now live at almost 1,000 campuses, and it's hard to think about because we never really wanted to build a company. We were just like, we think this helps our friends.
Can you tell me, was there like a certain thing he said to you? I think that's like a huge decision to kind of leave Stanford. Was there like a sentence, like a
I think the thing for me was, well, one, I pulled him out of retirement. He came on as CEO in the early days of the company to basically do the things that he knows how to do well that me and Ashton didn't want to do. I wanted to go to every college campus in America and make this app big. So I did that. I went to 280 college campuses, including Vanderbilt, in the very early days of launching the app. I spent a ton of time just going campus by campus by campus, taking advantage of what I knew, which was I was 19 years old, and I knew how to just like run through campuses and make the app big. For whatever reason, that was like some intuition that I had there. Ashton, my co-founder, is super technical. He was working with the engineering team. We'd work on product together. There's a lot of other stuff that comes with building a company. And in the earliest days, we wanted to learn how to do it, but we didn't want to do it. And he basically said, look, I will take over as CEO to get you guys from 0 to 1 here, and we'll just make it happen together. And there was something very synergistic there. Everybody told us, don't do it, don't do it. I was like, I'm doing it. And then next day I dropped out of Stanford, and Ashton did too, and the rest is history.
So kind of hopping back to what you talked about, that you're going to all these schools and you're kind of there for a few days, maybe a week, and you're just launching overnight, getting on campus. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe when you did that at Vanderbilt, and then also kind of touch on if you ever received any pushback in that area? I
got tons of pushback. I believed in like asking for forgiveness rather than permission. So my mindset always was, you never run through the administration. I love the Vanderbilt administration, but you never run through the administration. You always run through the students, because no one wants to use the app that their administration gives them. And for context, Fizz is like all things campus life, and it's very much run by the students, by the students. We were 18 when we started building it. I'm aging myself now. I'm 1 foot in the grave. I'm 23. But back in the day, we were just like, we were the consumer. So my mindset was, if I show up, if I go to a frat party, recruit a bunch of people to give out donuts to people and just like get them hyped about the app, I can show up in the morning, leave in the evening, and I'm out. So the first school outside of Stanford we did that at was Pepperdine. And within like 3 hours, they were trying to arrest me. I snuck like 2,000 donuts onto campus. I recruited 40 people off the street to give out the donuts. 3 hours in, we had a third of the school on campus. Police were chasing after me. I was wearing a Pepperdine shirt and sunglasses, sitting in the library. They had no idea who I was, because I'm a 19-year-old. We had no coverage on our company. I was just doing my thing. And I was like, I can do this everywhere. So then I did it everywhere. And Vanderbilt was maybe like the 8th or 9th school that we went to. It was October 2022. No pushback here when we launched. Showed up with the donuts, recruited a bunch of people, in the morning, out in the evening. It became very big here. Nowadays, we've got the whole school on the app. So I'm like I can't go back to like Oklahoma Christian University. Like, there are certain places where just like they didn't like that an app went from 0 to 1 in like 3 hours that they had no idea about. But nowadays, they love it. It's good from a safety standpoint because it is really the main news source of what's going on campus. It makes students feel much more included to campus life because if you are the president of the top fraternity on campus or the person who never leaves your room, you have access to the exact same information. But I get it. Like, I was just this like 19-year-old showing up with a bunch of donuts, like launching an app they knew nothing about. So yeah.
No, that makes sense. It seems like I think a pretty popular sentiment on Fizz here is that the administration doesn't always understand what students are wanting. So I know you kind of like touched on it when you were answering, but do you think Fizz or in what ways, or do you think Fizz even should be kind of bridging that gap in understanding or having the administration understand what students kind of want and care about at school?
I hope so. Because, I mean, at a school like Vanderbilt, there are like 1,000 posts per day in the community, and we've had close to 40 million posts made on the platform. It is very much the raw thoughts of students as they live out their experience, and I think something I've noticed is there's a big disconnect between administrations and students. They don't really speak the same language for the most part, and part of it is admin not listening to students or talking to students, and part of it is students are not comfortable going to admin. And if there's some sort of bridge, like, that's always a great thing. But at the end of the day, Fizz is a product by students for students. It's going to continue to be a product by students for students, and nobody wants their administration in their app. So there has to be some better way for administrations to communicate with their students. But even I go to schools, all of the professors and administrations have no idea what Fizz is, or they know it in the context of like the tech world and like a tech company that is doing well and has raised a lot of money. They usually don't know it in the context of like, you know, like they don't know it in the context of all the students at their own school and in their classes use it.
Yeah. I think obviously the most polarizing part of Fizz is that anonymity. How do you think that, like, how do you view that lens of it and how it is so polarizing?
Yeah, I mean, it isn't that polarizing in 2026. Maybe it was many years back. But the way I look at it is when I arrived at Stanford, I was in a 1,200-person group chat with people who had grown up on social media, where the expectation is you're going to present the most perfect version of yourself. If you can't do that, then don't say anything at all. And that's why in that 1,200-person group chat, literally nobody would speak. And what we've done is we've given people the ability to speak. It does not matter if you're the popular kid on campus. It does not matter if you're in Greek life. It does not matter what your role is with respect to campus. You can speak your mind. And you have the ability to talk about the real things. If you want to talk about failing an exam, you're not going to go on your Instagram story and say, I've failed this exam. If you want to talk about breaking up with your significant other, you're not going to go on Instagram and say that. But on Fizz, you can. And it lets people very much be their authentic selves.
Yeah, so kind of building on that and looking at social media more generally, what do you think really are the distinguishing factors that make Fizz different than like a Facebook or an Instagram?
Well, I usually like to say that Fizz is the last remaining social media, meaning Instagram, well, Facebook isn't even used by Gen Z at this point, and Instagram and TikTok have just become pure media platforms. They've become entertainment platforms where you are posting about the 1% of your life. You're talking about influencers who are on there, who are posting highlight reels from their vacation in Europe or wherever else it might be. On Fizz, you actually know who you're in a community with. You're in a community with the people who you share a common experience with. It might not be somebody you know personally, but it is somebody who you might see at the dining hall or see at a party, or it could be your roommate. You never know who it might be. And that's the beauty of Fizz. You share a common experience, a common identity with everybody you're in this private, intimate community with. And I believe the future of social media is that. It is community, it is intimacy, it is privacy, it is authenticity. And if you do that right, you have something very, very powerful.
Like using that like lens of hyperlocality, how does that translate? How would you think that translates to future social media apps?
That's a good question. I'm mainly focused on my own social media apps, so it's hard to say where the rest will go. But what I generally see is everybody's falling down the TikTok trap. So while TikTok continues to become a doom-scrolling entertainment platform, a media platform, which is very powerful, which many people use, we're just going in the opposite direction. And even platforms like Reddit are interest-based, and interest is not nearly as powerful as experience. For me, being able to be in the dorm at Stanford while I was still enrolled, knowing everybody in my dorm uses this app for things that mean something to me, that is special. And a big differentiator between Fizz and other platforms is most legacy social platforms abide by the 1-9-90 rule. 1% post, 9% comment, 90% lurk. On Fizz, 35% of our users are creating posts, which is completely unheard of, but it truly is the democratization of content, the democratization of information, and a meaningful platform through and through, because like at Vanderbilt, it's Vanderbilt students who are in the community with you.
So you've been out of college for a little bit since you've dropped out of Stanford. I'm graduating this year. And so Fizz isn't really going to necessarily be something in my life, but I think a question that kind of might come off of that is there a place for Fizz outside of the university? And how does that look like, or is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, we believe there is. I believe if you are a 24-year-old Vanderbilt grad who lives in West Village in New York and works at McKinsey, you have a lot in common with the 25-year-old Dartmouth grad who lives in West Village in New York and works at BCG. Like, there are people in real life who share a common experience, and when you arrive in college, you need to meet friends, you need to find roommates, you want to find bars and clubs and parties and events and just meet people. The exact same problems happen when you graduate. Like, I'm 23, I watched all of my friends graduate college recently. They went to LA, they went to New York, Boston, San Francisco, Austin. And when they arrived, they didn't know anybody. They didn't know where to go, what restaurants to go to, what clubs to go to, what people to meet, what roommates to have. And we want to solve for that with hyperlocal community. So, like, untold secret is we actually are in the non-college market now. We just started expanding, but we're doing it very slowly because we got to stick to our roots, which is we expanded in a very controlled way with private communities, and we want to continue to expand in a very controlled way. We want to make sure that as we expand, we are truly limiting it to these intimate, shared experience communities.
Like, using kind of going back to that business standpoint, how does Fizz make money, and how do you envision Fizz makes money in 10 years?
So initially, we just burned money, and that's unfortunate. That's never how you want a business to be. So we raised a lot of money, and then we realized, well, we have this incredibly powerful audience. If you want to go reach 98% of Stanford, Yale, Princeton, Dartmouth, Vanderbilt, Duke, Notre Dame, like you name it, students, there was only one way to do it. And we had CEOs of massive companies showing up and being like, we can't reach this generation. How do we do it? So we run ads, but we do it in a very similarly controlled way, where when we work with a brand, our team helps to craft the ad. I've been to almost 300 campuses. Our team has been to like 1,000. Our team knows what college students want to see, and it's not like random corporate marketing jargon. It's things that will actually resonate with them. And we've been fortunate to work with Amazon, Perplexity, Kalshi, Quizlet, Sony Pictures, like a bunch of really, really big brands that know this is the most powerful and trusted way to reach Gen Z, to go and reach college students. So right now it's through our ads business. You never know what direction that will go in. Commerce is a big part of the platform, but we've yet to integrate payments into our marketplace because I don't want to hinder the user experience. I want the user experience to be better. And I believe if we're giving people Perplexity Pro for free or Quizlet Plus for free or discounts on things, that makes the experience better. These are products that college students use. I think if we just throw a ton of random ads at them, they're going to hate it. And that's the last thing we want to do. Like, we're trying to make campus life better and doing what we do.
Can you talk more about the Fizz marketplace? Because I think that's like not the most kind of noted part of it, but I think it also is pretty interesting.
Yeah, so the Fizz marketplace is actually bigger than people realize. It's its own tab in the app. And the way it started was so after I dropped out, I stayed near campus, like 50 feet away, and pretty much lived out the Stanford experience with all of my friends to a great extent. And I had to sell my bike. I was like biking all around Palo Alto, and I went to Stanford's bike shop to sell it. And they said, you should sell it on Fizz. That's where everybody's selling their bikes. They had no idea who I was. And I was like, that just blew my mind. Like, people are buying and selling on the platform, and we haven't even productized it. Like, we have not built a feature for this. Next day, we started building Fizz Marketplace. And Fizz Marketplace, we released like 2 years after that. We were building it for a while. We tested it out on some campuses very secretly. You can't test things out at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's like in the spotlight. We tested it out at like Bowie State University and University of Denver. And it was like a year and a half before we released it everywhere else. And then it just took off on campuses. People use it for everything from clothing, concert tickets, sports tickets. The most searched item is cars. I don't know how that's possible with like peer-to-peer, but people do it. And the marketplace has been a big component. And we always say like the more utility, the better. Whether it's the marketplace or events, there have been like 200,000 events posted on the platform, or whatever it might be, the more utility, the better the experience.
So while we're kind of on the business topic, a lot of students at Vanderbilt are kind of going into like the consulting world or going into like a startup or want to be entrepreneurs themselves. What, if you could kind of tell your younger self something or just give like general advice of what you would want to know stepping into kind of the startup world, what would that be?
Maybe to not. No, I'm kidding. I think it's a good thing to do. I think I usually say to people, like, the most important thing in building a company, not that I know, I'm like very early on in the journey with respect to many people who have done way more, is to stay high with the lows and low with the highs. That's the biggest thing that I've learned from all the people and mentors around me, which is when you're building a company, you're gonna have a lot of really bad moments and a lot of really good moments. In the really bad moments, you need to stay high with the lows. You have to operate at your best when the company is in its worst situation. Otherwise, the company is gonna die, and the only thing you have to fear is the company dying. But I think as importantly, you have to stay low with the highs. In the best moments, like we were 20 years old and had raised over $40 million, and the biggest thing that we had to tell ourselves, and we did not do this perfectly, is you have to stay low with the highs. You have to stay humble. You have to stay calm and balanced. It's important for your team's sake. It's important for your sake, for your product's sake, and for your company's sake. Otherwise, you will burn through all of the capital and you will go right to zero and none of it mattered anyways. And the ability to stay high with the lows and low with the highs is essential on this roller coaster that is a startup. And I think if people are, seniors in college who are trying to go start a company, I would legitimately say don't. I would say go join a company. Go experience those lows, go experience those highs, experience the roller coaster. That company might die or might become the next Amazon. You never know what will happen with it. And then maybe 2 or 3 years later, you say, well, look, I've now lived it. It's still what I want to do. Now I'm going to go make it happen. And the people who end up going and starting companies have a high tolerance for risk because most likely it's going to fail. And that's just the reality of building a company.
Katie mentioned a lot of Vanderbilt is on this either, business, entrepreneurship track. How does partnership look like in entrepreneurship? I know you have a very close partner in business, and how do you think that relationship has evolved?
Yeah, so my co-founder, Ashton, I met him. He was the first person at Stanford that I met on a Zoom call back in August of 2020, right before we arrived. Him and I organized that group of 25 to go to Stanford together. To Scottsdale. He was in Columbus, Ohio. I was in San Francisco. And we've been inseparable ever since. Like, we're very different people. People meet us and they're just baffled by it. He's quiet and serious and technical, and like we're really opposite personalities and skill sets in pretty much every capacity, but it just works. And we lived together in first a house that we also worked out of in Palo Alto, and then we moved into an apartment in Palo Alto, then a house with 6 other people in Palo Alto. Then we ended up moving across the country, now living in New York. We also lived in Scottsdale together. We lived in Nashville together back in 2021. We've lived on Stanford's campus in 2 separate dorms together. Somehow we don't get sick of each other, and it just works. Having somebody who you really trust, somebody who you know is as dedicated as you are to the cause of what you're doing and to building the company that you're building, that we have dedicated our entire adult lives to doing, is the most important thing. We both know we could not have done this company without each other. And we continue to know that to this day. It's why we are now 23 years old living together still. Like in New York, living together in an apartment in very crammed quarters, because we very much trust one another. In work, in life, we know none of it's personal. All we're trying to do here is drive this forward and finish what we started, and we're gonna do it together.
Well, I respect that. I think if I also worked with my roommate, I don't know if we would still be roommates, so that takes a very special kind of friendship.
He's more patient than me. He's more patient than I am.
There are lots of forgiveness going on, probably. So kind of jumping back onto the topic of Fizz just for a couple more questions, but we wanted to touch on, kind of ask you about what moderation looks like on Fizz, because I know that can be something that's kind of contentious in our society of kind of what speech should we allow, kind of where the lines are, so kind of how you got to the policy of what you do on Fizz.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a difficult process. It's always going to be a work in progress. But from day one, we said, well, if we had a centralized moderation team, like a lot of social platforms do, they would not understand the content. If you are at Vanderbilt, for example, and you say that like Rand sucks, they would be like, they're bullying Rand. You got to remove the post. You guys know that's not what they're actually saying, though. They're referring to a building or a dining hall or whatever it might be. So you need to have students who are helping to maintain that process. We're very lucky to exist in the technological era of 2026, where the vast majority of moderation can be done by AI. And LLMs have enabled incredible moderation potential where we've built these crazy complex systems to make sure that our communities stay safe. But we also have 7,000 volunteer moderators across the country, people who are responsible for keeping the most hyperlocal content that AI cannot figure out, and AI cannot figure out everything and won't be able to for quite a long time, to make sure that that content comes down. We then also have a central safety team to make sure that anything that gets bubbled up even further, we're dealing with from there. We're the first anonymous platform, and I wouldn't even call us an anonymous platform, but anonymous platform in the sense that like people can post their identity if they want to. You verify with your .edu when you're joining. We're the first anonymous platform that has done this like decentralized model other than Reddit. And we believe that we've done it 10 times better than them. Does that mean it's perfect? No. At the end of the day, you're always gonna have to continue to improve your practices from a moderation standpoint. We see a lot of challenges from that standpoint with Meta or with Twitter or X or whatever it might be. But we're proud of what we've built up to this point, and we think that decentralized model and leaving a lot in the hands of the students has been a really powerful and important thing.
You're growing a business in kind of a new age. Obviously, AI is coming in. I know you briefly mentioned it. Can you talk more about how Fizz incorporates AI or how it kind of deals with the new AI age?
Yeah, from a content moderation and a content recommendation standpoint, it's important. Content recommendation is with our global product that connects students across colleges, which has not gone live at Vanderbilt, for the content that you want to see. Hobby is there's too much content once it's like all of the schools together. So AI can be really important in tagging content and giving people the type of content that they want to see. But most importantly with content moderation, it keeps our users safe. Like it gives us the ability to filter every single post that runs through there and make sure that it's not violating guidelines, that it doesn't target people directly, that it's not hate speech, that it's not any of these things that we don't want on the platform. And I think we are always fighting this battle of how do you incorporate AI in an era where AI is important without losing the fact that we're like a human-focused platform. Like we are a human-centered social platform. We don't want to be an AI bot. So if you ask the question of like, are we going to implement like an AI chat bot like Snapchat did, like no shot, because nobody actually likes that. It's just like posturing to somebody about how you're integrating AI into your product. We don't feel like we have anybody to impress from that standpoint. We're just doing our thing. And we want to keep it human focused.
And on that, what do you think is now the biggest challenge with AI, but also just with like a new business in 2026? Do you think is the most pressing challenge you have right now?
That we have as a company?
Yeah.
Moving beyond college. And we've made really good strides from that standpoint. What Vanderbilt students don't know is about 2 years ago, we launched a product called Global Fizz that took a quarter of our colleges and brought them together into one space. We were like, we might have just nuked our entire app. We have no idea if people are gonna like this or not. And they liked it a lot. And then we're like, well, we're not gonna roll it out everywhere. We wanna see if it sticks. And then it stuck, where people still have their private community. Vanderbilt's never losing its .edu community. But also, if you guys wanna interact with Belmont students, you'll be able to do it at that point. If you guys wanna interact with Tennessee State or Fisk students, you can do that. So Global Fizz was a big step. Because once you bring everybody together, and location is a big component of it, and shared identity is a big component of it, then you can translate that to the real world. So we actually have thousands of non-college users. We've just done it very quietly, and it's in the past few weeks. It's like very, very recent. Eventually, Vanderbilt will be part of Global Fizz, which is that cross-community experience within the next year, most likely, and that is the future of the product. So what keeps me up at night is, like, we are the college app at this point. We're at nearly 1,000 colleges. We raised our $40+ million. Like, we are the college app. How do you become a generational social product? And we would be foolish to not leverage the foundation that we already built, which is so many college students across America that use it every single day, graduate into the real world, and then we give them nothing. It's like, there's gotta be a solution to that. And we think we've built it. Time will tell.
So building on that, considering the future of Fizz, but also the future of social media, what do you think that landscape's gonna look like in the next 5, 10 years?
Hard to say, but right now I feel like we're the only ones in social media. Like I said earlier, like Reddit is very much a millennial plus platform, and it's interest-based. If you like Taylor Swift, like go to your like Reddit subreddit for Taylor Swift, like fine. But if you want a shared experience with other people who mean something to you, something hyper-local, something community-based, then you use Fizz for that. And we believe that translates to the real world. TikTok continues to go down the TikTok path. It's working for them, for what they want to do. I would never want to build that. That's just like not my thing. Instagram with Reels seems to be trying to clone TikTok. They're going to go down that path. They've moved completely away from friends. They literally said 93% of content is not from your friends. They're going down that path too. Every other social platform also just breaks things wide open and goes down that path. Even Be Real, which went up and right back down, just became not intimate, not authentic anymore. There was no durability, no stickiness, no utility to that experience. Whether another social platform pops up other than us, I don't know. And if it does, like, I'll be happy. If there's something that can actually bridge IRL with online and like bring people together in real life with an intimate community that means something to them, I would be thrilled. I hope it's us. We've done it on college campuses. Real life, we're doing it as we speak. But like, I would be thrilled. I think IRL is very important. I think real social and bringing people together is very important.
How does competition work then? Because I know there are apps like Yik Yak and other kind of college-based communities. How do you differentiate and deal with competition?
Yeah, I mean, we were very fortunate. Like, we had a bunch of copycat competitors pop up right after us on campuses, and it helped to be the 19-year-old who could get to the campuses quicker, be one with the users, and build the product that actually really resonated with people. And we're fortunate. Like, we are the college app at this point, and it took a couple years to do that kind of like land grab of like go to as many campuses as possible to make it happen. So yeah, we don't really view ourselves as having any competitors at this point.
Kind of going back to what you were saying about the importance of social media as actually being a connector between people and Fizz being a really people-centric app, I think there's a lot of kind of alarmism about our generation that we don't know how to interact in person because we live so much of our lives through technology. Kind of, do you agree with that assessment? Like, what role does Fizz play in that, and how do we need to interact beyond our phones?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, the pandemic, we were just hearing stuff. To think that the current freshmen in college were 7th graders when the pandemic hit makes me feel so old. But the pandemic really did kind of like mess all of us up with respect to our ability to interact with other people. My thing on campuses back in the day was like, I show up, I ask people, what's your story? I still do that in real life. I wanted to know more about people. And everybody's like very shocked when I ask that question. They're like, story, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, like, what's your life story? We just talked about our stories backstage, and that was very cool to do. But everybody is surprised by it nowadays. And I think we need more conversation, more human-to-human interaction. We had the CEO, I shouldn't name the company, but of like a Fortune 100 company that has a lot of stores on college campuses around the US, and they said, we're trying to build a people business. Like, we want to bring people to our stores. We ran a pilot with them. We got 600 people to their store on Chapman's campus at noon on a random Thursday. And they're like, how does this happen? Like, you're a social media platform. How could 600 people just show up? I'm like, we just sent one push notification, and they're all there. And they're like, why? Like, we could send a push notification from Instagram, they wouldn't show up. No, but this is from Chapman Fizz. Like, you share a .edu email with everybody who is in there. You are connected on a very human level with these people because you see them every single day. And I think everybody, no matter what space you're in, has to make more of an effort to drive human interaction again, because that's like the beauty of life. You got to be curious. You got to hear people's stories. It's going to inspire you. It inspires the product we're building. Like, I just love meeting people. In New York, my main pastime, I'm kind of hobbyless at this point. My main pastime is, well, I have two maybe. One is I go to this cold plunge in the Upper East Side. I can't stand cold plunges. I hate cold plunges. They're too cold. But there are a lot of interesting people in that cold plunge. And every time I go, I ask everybody their story. First, they're horrified. Then they're like, okay. And they tell me their story. And then I become friends with them because they're all super interesting. They've done way bigger things than me. They've gone and started public companies. They're producers from movies. A person who was currently on SNL I met in the cold plunge. Like, for some reason, they all congregate in this cold plunge. And the fact that they're so surprised when I ask them their story, I'm like, we got to change that. Like, hopefully people will just talk. I talk to people on the subway in New York. I feel like they're gonna like hurt me when I ask them their story because they're so surprised by it. But I think we have maybe it's like a social anxiety problem. We're like, having grown up online, like, if you're not perfect, then don't be anything at all. I'm like, I got no shame. Maybe that was going to 300 campuses. whatever it might be, I got no shame. I'm just curious, and I just want to live life. So, yeah.
It's a fantastic way, I think, to end like the more formal part of this. And to kind of end it out, a few like questions. You probably posted a lot of Fizz at Stanford. What was your, do you think, top ranked Fizz?
Good question. It's been many years since my prime because I was a student at Stanford until December 2021. But I remember making a post. So Stanford, we don't have good football and basketball, unlike you guys. You guys have now like a sports school, which is dope. I wish we had that. We were playing Oregon. Oregon was like the number 3 team in the country. We got up 3-0, which was one of the best moments of my life. So I screenshotted that score and I said to stop the count. I'm like, game over. Like, let's call it. Posted it on Fizz. That post went crazy. And yeah, I like to post about sports and stuff. I had friends who were on the football team at Stanford. I'm very jealous of Vandy right now. Very jealous.
Okay, you are leading a very successful company. Is there anything non-business related that you feel like you want to accomplish in the next few decades?
So initially my goal was college basketball journalist. Failed on that. Next goal, which I've had for a long time, is to open a pancake restaurant. I was talking about this backstage, but like I really want to open a pancake restaurant. I think the closest thing to that is Waffle House, which we don't get in New York or in California. We can have it here in Nashville, and I cherish those moments. And I want to open a pancake restaurant, maybe a pancake chain, and then hopefully make it back into college sports as like an athletic director or something along those lines when I'm much older. But right now, I'm very locked in on what we're doing. I still love it. And I've always said, as long as the magic's still there, I'm still doing my thing, and the magic is still there, and is more than ever. I'm as excited about the work that we're doing as I will ever be. But yeah, pancake restaurant is main aspiration.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk with us today. I think we all really enjoyed hearing a little bit more about Fizz and kind of your outlook on some other things kind of regarding that. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.